Thank you.
That brings up the former holders of the number one pick, the Chicago Bears, now down here at 9. Shane, is OT1 coming off the board here?
Could be. Just the worst team in the NFL last year, having a couple different holes to fill. As always, though, they've spent a lot in free agency, having the most cap space, especially addressing the linebacking group, has made that nice. But some of the big positions are still needs. They need an edge rusher. They need a three-tech defensive tackle. They need offensive tackles, at least one, and the left tackle position. They were super in on Mike McGlinchey and trying to sign him. The fact that they couldn't tells me they're probably drafting an offensive tackle fairly early. The running back position is a need. I mean, this could be a spot for Bijan Robinson out of Texas. I don't think it's out of the question. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a Ryan Poles move, but it wouldn't be surprising. I think wherever Bijan goes, we're probably not going to expect it. But yeah, I mean, it feels like this has to be the spot for a left tackle. I think Tevin Jenkins played well enough. You can have him start at right tackle, but you don't want 5th round pick Braxton Jones starting left tackle yet, right? We like Braxton Jones, but not to start as a rookie and second-year player at the left tackle position for Justin Fields. So the question is who, because I do think there are 3 different options that they can take. Ultimately, I think I'm going to go with who I consider kind of the safest all-around player in terms of playing the left tackle position, and that's Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. And so the reason I go with him over Peter Skoronski, who's been mocked there a lot, is definitely the arm length and the fear that Peter Skoronski might not be able to play tackle. I think ultimately the Bears are going to want someone who has that length and size to work with this athletic. Skoronski's athletic, but work with this athletic quarterback. And Broderick Jones, there are some rumors, maybe some off the field, nothing major, but effort concerns, things that could drop him in the draft. I think you play it safe and take Justin Fields' guard that was in front of him at Ohio State, who played tackle last year in Paris Jones.
I like it. Him and Broderick Jones, I think, are neck and neck there for that top offensive tackle spot. We moved Peter Skoronski to the inside interior offensive line a few weeks ago after we debated on it, and the 32-inch arms is definitely probably no bueno outside for, what would you say, 25 teams, maybe. So
there's probably
it definitely limits. But that brings me now to the Super Bowl runners-up last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, who have the 10th pick, courtesy of the New Orleans Saints. And I probably would have leaned corner here had they not brought back Darius Slay, brought back James Bradbury. They brought in Greedy Williams. It feels like overkill. I'm also a big believer in Milton Williams, and they drafted Jordan Davis last year. So interior defensive line comes off the board here. I got to do it, Shane. And I know you love this and you've done it. They've never done it. They don't do it, right? With Howie Roseman, it's never happened, but this is the spot. Bijan Robinson, running back Texas, 10th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Brad, what is that? What would a Bijan Robinson Philadelphia fantasy look like?
Awful. I mean, I don't know. Bijan's so good that I feel like he'll do well at nearly almost any team not named New England. I feel like New England's where running backs go to not be very productive and not exciting. But they have so many running backs and they churn through them so well in this offensive scheme that it's like, I just don't get nearly as excited about a guy like Bijan in Philly as I would as, say, he went to almost any other team. Like the way that they use their running backs. I mean, I feel like it kind of caps what Bijan could be in that offense, unless they decide to use him as a pass catcher as well. But, what role would he fill? Is it the Miles Sanders role? Is he going to take away reps from some of the other guys they already have there? I mean, because they have some guys that are decent there already. So it would be a weird fit, but it wouldn't surprise me because they have the draft capital, right? They got 2 firsts. Why not?
Look, I'm coming at you, Brad, because if you take a running back in the top 15, guess what? Kenneth Gainwell, I don't care about Kenneth Gainwell. I don't care about Boston
Kenneth Gainwell's
Scott.
so good in that offense.
I don't care. It doesn't matter because I got Bijan Robinson, maybe the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. If you're taking him, even if they trade down and take him, I mean, if you take a running back this high, I think you are molding the offense toward him. So probably the only thing for fantasy I wouldn't like is Jalen Hurts stealing those goal line touchdowns. That's the only thing. But other than that,
Jalen Hurts is going to get close to 1,000 yards rushing, right? Or somewhere in the, it's like, so, I mean, that kind of hurts him overall, just Jalen by himself.
Shane, quickly, who is the alternative pick to Bijan here for Philadelphia?
Look, I think it's open. I think this is probably a prime spot for them ultimately to move down the board. With how it's fallen, because I think corner is still an option. I think if Witherspoon or Gonzalez were still there, I'd feel better about that. But I think we could look at the pass rusher. You're looking at Nolan Smith sitting there, Miles Murphy sitting there. I think both those would be possible. I think the way this board falls, Bijan though makes a lot of sense. Ultimately,
with Hargrave leaving, that doesn't concern you all.
Like I said, I love Milton Williams as a prospect, and I want to see him get every bit of run they can. They brought Cox back on a 1-year deal. Plus, they drafted Jordan Davis in the first round last year. So I feel like they're going to go a little cheaper with those guys and, maybe use that capital somewhere else. Plus, I mean, they had the pick at 30 that who's to say one of the other interior defensive line prospects doesn't jump up to them at that point in time. Miranda, you're now up with the Tennessee Titans, and part of me feels like this team's in blow it up mode.
Maybe, yes. I feel like Tennessee is like one of the most confusing teams. I don't know. They kind of, I guess it's kind of like in that Atlanta phase. It's like, what are you doing? Are you blowing things up? Are you trying to kind of salvage what you have and build on a few of these key pieces? I don't know. I am going to look at their offense at the moment. They had one of the worst pass blocking lines in the league last year. You've got Derrick Henry, of course, that you want to protect. And I think this is where I dropped my F-bomb last time, so I'm going to refrain. But we've got Tannehill out there. And so I do think, now you took my boy Paris Johnson, but I think as an insurance policy, I was okay with Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern to be up there and just continue to try to shore up this line.
I think it's a good pick because Skoronski could play left tackle for the Titans, right. Or if they don't like the arm length, he kicks inside, plays left guard maybe, or right guard if Dylan Reddins from North Dakota State doesn't work out. I was confused the fact that they actually gave real American currency to Andre Dillard.
I know.
And it was like 6 or 7 million per, right? I mean, this was like some stupid deal for this guy sucks.
Because
no offense to Andre Dillard.
Man, he sucks.
So
not good. But Peter Skoronski, probably one of the better overall offensive linemen in this draft class, right, Shane?
Here's their concern with his length, though. Like, you think that's going to be an issue that they go, we're going to pass up on him since we need to get our guy Paris. Do you see that happening?
It could. I think the question is, what do the Titans themselves kind of prefer? And like Brian mentioned, I think it could be okay. This guy played left tackle for 3 years in the Big Ten, super successful. We're going to take him. Mm-hmm. And like I said, hey, if things aren't working out, you can kick him inside. I think the versatility ended up being a benefit for some of these teams that like that.
Yep.
Well, Brad would have been on the clock here, but Albert Breer's already tipped the pick off to everybody on Twitter here as the pick's already in. While we were talking about Peter Skoronski going to Northwestern, Brad's already got the pick in the chat. Brad, go ahead and announce who you've got the Houston Texans selecting here at pick 12.
I was pumped. This card was up at the platform before you even finished saying Skoronski. Miles Murphy, edge from Clemson. I mean, Houston needs help on that defensive side of the ball. Jerry Hughes is not getting any younger. They're okay in the middle. I mean, they've got Malik Collins. They've got a couple of pieces there at the D tackle position. And then Jonathan Greener, a kid that's been in the league a couple of years, but there's just nothing there that gets you excited in the morning as a Houston fan. So giving them some edge help. I mean, you've seen consistent development out of Miles Murphy throughout his time at Clemson, no matter what they're doing with that defense, which there have been some questionable times in that Clemson defensive room as to what they're doing with this kid. He's produced fairly well, maybe not the most exciting player in the top end of this draft, but he's consistent and he's strong at the point of attack. And I like what he could bring to at least what I would assume is the way their defense is going to go, which is probably more 4-3 concept. So give me a guy like Miles Murphy, and they can use him in either spot. They could probably flex him inside if they wanted to. I would probably play him mostly on the edge, though. I love Miles Murphy, though. He's a fun pick here for Houston. I think they need the help.
Shane, you like Miles Murphy?
I do like Miles Murphy. I worry I like Miles Murphy more than the NFL. That's like my one worry is that maybe he doesn't go quite this high, but I've been putting him like 10, which I feel feels a little bit high. I think 12. I think this range, as Brad talked about, it is a big need and it feels like a good fit. So I do like that 12 to 20 range for him. If it was me, I'd take him higher. We'll see if he does the full workout and everything looks good. Then I think sky's the limit for his draft stock.
It does feel like he doesn't get talked about a ton, though. Like throughout draft season, you see names pop and guys kind of shoot up, and you just don't hear a lot about him. I mean, people don't say anything negative; they just don't say much, which is weird.
Well, that brings us to the next pick, 13th overall. Miranda, you had a little writing this week. It's going to come out on Thursday that involves this next team, the New York Football Jets, and probably going to have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback at some point. At some point. You now have you get Mecole Hardman coming in today, signed with the Jets. You've already got Alan Lazard coming in as a free agent. Probably going to get Randall Cobb at some point, right? Based on the wish list.
Essentially, yeah.
For Mr. Rodgers. So what are you doing here to aid and embed your former quarterback here for the New York Jets?
Well, where do I start? So, I mean, here's the deal. I mean, unless something crazy happens, Aaron Rodgers will be their quarterback in the 2022 season. 23 season. So you're looking at a almost 40-year-old quarterback who's, he's got this wish list and it's his prized possession to try to go here. And, he's got a big chip on his shoulder. He's got an ego. You got to protect him. They haven't made any offensive line, like big moves here in the offseason yet. So I'm actually going to go Broderick Jones out of Georgia. And again, try to give him that protection. They're kind of needing that already. And again, you bring in a guy, they thought they had Zach Wilson last year when they started the season, a whole different ballgame when you move up to a guy who's turning 40 in December. That's sick that I know that. But yes, his birthday's in December.
You're not a fan or anything, right?
No.
I love the pick here. Broderick Jones. Mekhi Becton was the 11th overall pick in 2020. Yeah. There were some people floating potential trades of him for Jonah Williams out there, or them maybe being one of the teams that may trade for Jonah Williams. I don't necessarily think that would affect this trade at all, because I think Broderick Jones could play right tackle. I was never a big fan of Max Mitchell when he came out of Louisiana, their current right tackle that they drafted in last year's 4th round. You got solid guards there as well. Mm-hmm. So I think Broderick Jones, good fit, good pick here for the Jets, either to be the left tackle or right tackle. What do you think, Shane?
I love it. I think if you're the Jets, this is what you got to do, especially like Miranda talked about. If you're bringing in Rodgers, you got to protect him at least a little bit. So I think Broderick Jones is a good fit. And if, Mekhi Becton, those things don't work out, I love it. Good value there too, potentially.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us up to Brad Menendez here with the New England Patriots. Brad, which offensive skill player's career are you going to ruin here by sending him to New England?
I hate being the guy that has to pick for the Patriots because they don't draft the way the world thinks they would draft. You know, this is the point where they pick a small school interior offensive lineman, and everyone's like, "What?" I'm actually not going to send them a skill position player. You know, with the additions of Juju, and they brought over, the tight end Gesicki. I mean, they've added some guys, some pass catchers. So I'm not entirely sure what they're thinking. But this, to me, feels like an offensive lineman. When you project to have Riley Reif as a starting right tackle on your team, you need to replace that position very quickly. I'm going to go with the guy that I wouldn't have put here just because this feels like a Belichick move. Give me Darnell Wright from Tennessee. Big, physical. He played left and right tackle. We know that Bill Belichick's not afraid to move guys around. I think his foot speed is a concern for me. You know, I don't think he's necessarily the fastest, but, you know, he played in the SEC and they put him at left and right tackle, and you saw him be able to hold up pretty well. And Bill Belichick's not afraid to pick these massive, huge individuals and put them in the offensive line. So give me that. I mean, that's a curveball that I wouldn't have anticipated. A week ago, I would have picked Joey Porter here because they needed corner help, but then they re-signed players and threw my whole idea out the window.
Riley Reif, man. Didn't know the guy was still playing. Gonna be honest.
He didn't either.
So yeah, I mean, I like the fit here, and you know, offensive tackles coming off the board here, fast and furious right now. So that's the third offensive tackle we've had, plus Karonsky. So that's 4 off the board so far here in the first 14 picks. Whew, drying up fast. Miranda, Green Bay, you're back on the clock here. Pick 15.
Sad one. I'm at this second unsure of the direction I could go because I have 2 very different paths. And stick with me. It all, again, as much as I didn't want the trade to break and ruin my article, I did want it earlier rather than later. Well, it hasn't happened, so I don't know exactly what we're getting. I feel like I'm going to stay consistent, even though it feels boring because I said this exact person on our last draft. At this moment, our safety play has taken a nosedive, and I'm going to manifest a guy like Darnell Washington in the second round at pick 45.
Name it into existence. Fair enough.
Because I almost was going to go with one of these stud wide receivers. A lot of Packers Twitter is so obsessed with, you know, your Addisons and a lot of JSNs out there. And I was very tempted to pick one of them since they were all readily available. But our tight end play is disgustingly bad. And so I'm going to go at shoring up 2 things, hopefully, within our first couple of picks. So I'm going to go Brian Branch out of Alabama.
Best safety in this class, best nickel corner in this class. I don't see how you go wrong here.
Yeah.
I had this in my mock this week. The Packers fans were not happy with me for having Brian Branch.
For having Brian Branch?
Packers,
wow.
Yes. So the athleticism, the RAS score is in yellow, and they're like, nope, not going to happen. They're not going to take a guy that unathletic in the top 100. I think they've only taken 2 that weren't green RAS in the past 4 years in the top 100. But I think Brian Branch is a better athlete than the numbers say. So I think this could be that situation. So I'm with you, but I definitely took some heat on Twitter this week for that exactly.
Packers fans, just go easy on them. We're not well this week. We're not well lately.
You guys should just enjoy sitting at the bottom of the North for a little while. All right, just slow down.
I really think we will.
And I guess the question I would have for you guys is RAS really that heavily weighted in these determinations?
That's a good question.
I mean, does the eyeball test thing, does the on the field play not factor into the equation that much?
The thing is, it does, right? Like we have these tiers of players. It's not like you're taking a 6-round RAS guy here at 15, right? It's about the pool of players that you're taking at 15 that are worth the pick at 15 that also fit that criteria. So I think it limits the pool a little bit more of who some of these teams are willing to take. But it's not like they're going to reach but players are going to go off the board if they're not athletic enough. And that's essentially what you're doing. Hey, we're going to remove this player. He doesn't fit what our defense is doing. Same thing with Dallas and their corners, the arm length. It's like you don't match, you're off the board. Doesn't matter what you do on the field. You don't fit our defense.
And it becomes a thing. It's like, is it a trend, or is it like, when does it stop becoming a trend? Because like we were talking about with the Colts, every player they drafted last year, they had 10 or 11 picks in last year's draft, and every single one of them was over 9 RAS. And use the Cleveland Browns for example. In the top 100, they don't draft anybody older than 22. It doesn't happen. So this is things that you have to kind of keep in mind when you're doing these mocks. And like Shane said, only 2 players out in the top 100 Green Bay's drafted in however many years below an 8 RAS. So it becomes a thing where it becomes an outlier when it does happen. But Brian Branch, I think the talent and the versatility that you're getting for him outweighs. He can become that outlier that outperforms the pick. That brings up pick 16, and the Washington Commanders are now on the board, and what we presume will be the final draft with Daniel Snyder as the owner. Maybe he's gone before then. We don't know. Will Levis still on the board, by the way, through the first 15 picks. We haven't seen him go. He's not going to go here.
Sam Howell would be upset if he did.
I'm sure Sam Howell would be upset. And they also have Jacoby Brissett in town now as well. But I want to go with a versatile linebacker prospect here. Maybe not Micah Parsons, but can give them some sort of boost rushing the passer as well as playing, a linebacker position here. And they drafted Jamin Davis a few years ago. Hasn't really worked out so far. But first linebacker off the board here in this class will be Drew Sanders, linebacker from Arkansas. Come off the board here at 16. Like I said, can rush the passer, great effort guy, high pursuit guy. Like I said, I don't think he's going to have double-digit sacks like Parsons has had, but I think he plays a similar style that Micah Parsons does. Shane, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a need for Washington. Like you said, Jamin Davis hasn't really worked out. I mean, I don't think that Cody Barton is moving the dial. They've been looking at linebacker. I think it's something they're going to address in this draft. So I think it's a fair pick. I think it's a good fit. Drew Sanders himself, the value of that off-ball linebacker, he does, like you said, Brian, he has a little more value because he does rush the passer. But I wonder where the value is but this is probably the area you start looking at him, right? I think 20 to 50, somewhere in that range.